morning, everybody. I'm Ria, compulsive overeater and bulimic. I don't know about you, but doesn't it feel like it's been forever since the last workshop? I don't know, maybe it's me. Anyway, today we're talking about acceptance. And so, because of none of my ideas are original, I am going to be reading out of the big book from the story Acceptance Was the Answer. We're starting on the last paragraph of page 416. Okay. At last, acceptance proved to be the key to my drinking problem. After I had been around AA for 7 months, tapering off alcohol and pills, not finding the program working very well, I was finally able to say, okay, God, it is true that I, of all people, strange as it may seem, and even though I didn't give my permission, really am an alcoholic of sorts. And it's all right with me. Now, what am I going to do about it? When I stopped living in the problem and began living in the answer, the problem went away. From that moment on, I have not had a single compulsion to drink. And acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. When I am disturbed, it is because I find some person, place, thing, or situation, some fact of my life, unacceptable to me. And I can find no serenity until I accept that person, place, thing, or situation as being exactly the way it is supposed to be at this moment. Nothing, absolutely nothing, happens in God's world by mistake. Until I could accept my alcoholism, I could not stay sober. Unless I accept life completely on life's terms, I cannot be happy. I need to concentrate not so much on what needs to be changed in the world as on what needs to be changed in me and in my attitudes. Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players. He forgot to mention that I was the chief critic. I was always able to see the flaw in every person, every situation. And I was always glad to point it out because I knew you wanted perfection just as I did. AA and acceptance have taught me that there is a bit of good in the worst of us and a bit of bad in the best of us, that we were all children of God, and we each have a right to be here. When I complain about me or you, I am complaining about God's handiwork. I am saying that I know better than God. For years, I was sure the worst thing that could happen to a nice guy like me would be that I would turn out to be an alcoholic. Today, I find it's the best thing that has ever happened to me. This proves I don't know what's good for me. And if I don't know what's good for me, then I don't know what's good or bad for you or for anyone. So I'm better off if I don't give advice, don't figure I know what's best, and just accept life on life's terms as it is today, especially my own life as it actually is. Before AA, I judged myself by my intentions while the world was judging me by my actions. Acceptance has been the answer to my marital problems. It's as though AA has given me a new pair of glasses. Max and I have been married now for 35 years. Prior to our marriage, when she was a shy, scrawny adolescent, I was able to see things in her that others couldn't necessarily see. Things like beauty, charm, gaiety, a gift for being easy to talk to, a sense of humor, and many other fine qualities. It was as if I had, rather than a Midas touch which turned everything to gold, a magnifying mind that magnified whatever it focused on. Over the years, I thought about Max, her good qualities grew and grew, and we married, and all these qualities became more and more apparent to me, and we were happier and happier. But then, as I drank more and more, the alcohol seemed to affect my vision. Instead of continuing to see what was good about my wife, I began to see her defects, and the more I focused my mind on her defects, the more they grew and multiplied. Every defect I pointed out to her became greater and greater. Each time I told her she was a nothing, she receded a little more into nowhere. The more I drank, the more she wilted. Then one day in AA, I was told that I had the lenses in my glasses backwards. The courage to change in the serenity prayer meant not that I should change my marriage, but rather that I should change myself and learn to accept my spouse as she was. AA has given me a new pair of glasses. I can again focus on my wife's good qualities and watch them grow and grow. So that's all for today, guys. I don't need to say anything else. That's it. Thanks. Just kidding. Okay. I'm Ria, compulsive overeater and bulimic. Okay, acceptance. I can't tell you how many times I've been referred to read this when I call a sponsor or a program person to fetch about like particularly my husband, but just life in general. They're always just like, why don't you read Acceptance Was the Answer? And I'm like, ugh, I can't read that freaking thing again. And like, you know what? It literally is the answer to everything. So let's talk about it. So initially, the writer of this story talks about how acceptance was the key to him even beginning to get sober, right? Because if I'm fighting the reality that I'm a compulsive overeater, I'm not going to do this program because I don't think I need it. I came into this program I went to my first meeting when I was 19, and I didn't really get abstinent until like really long lasting abstinence until I was 22. Because when I came in, I thought I knew I had a weird thing with food. I knew I did weird stuff, but I didn't know that I wasn't the one who was supposed to fix it. So I kept trying to, like, white knuckle it or do some kind of diet or eat certain things. And, I didn't get that this had nothing, even though I was the problem, it actually had nothing to do with me. And like, maybe if I could just, stand on my head and meditate and hold my finger on my nose, then I could eat this thing and it wouldn't be a problem anymore. Um, and then I finally had to get to a point where I saw myself do things with food that even I didn't want to be doing while I was doing them. Like there was I've told the story before, but I lived in Florida for a while, working at Disney, which was like my dream job for years. I'd always wanted to work at Disney World, and I got this job, and I was so excited. I worked at the late great movie ride at the Disney MGM Studios, which no longer exists, and it's a tragedy. But I'll move on. Anyway, so um, I called out sick to work because that's what happens when I'm eating compulsively. And there was a convenience store across the street from my apartment. And I went over there, bought all kinds of food, ate a lot of it, like to the point where I was laying on my couch and just feeling like I was going to die. And I went and purged, and I really felt so sick. And I was like, oh, I'm never doing this again. And then 10 minutes later, I got up and went back to the convenience store for more food. I didn't even want to be doing these things anymore. Like, I knew this was a problem. And that, by the way, like, if you want to keep compulsively eating, don't come to OA, because it's not fun anymore, even if you keep eating. Because now it's like, I know what I'm doing. It's just not fun. Like, I'd much rather live in oblivion. Like, OA ruins it. So, so that should be our tagline: ruining compulsive eating for compulsive eaters everywhere. Anyway, so, so yeah, I until I really saw, oh, this is not a thing I can like think my way out of, rationalize my way out of, um, come up with a plan to fix myself. That was when I really conceded, like, oh, okay, so this is like a real thing that isn't just a question of my willpower or the fact that I don't want it enough or whatever it is. Until I really understood that this was an addiction, that this was a problem beyond my capacity to solve on my own, that was when I really got it. And even in abstinence, it took me a while, because I was sort of, even though it took me 2 years or however long it was, I got in a meeting and I was struck abstinent, and I became obsessed with like food and the scale. And for a long time, like that was my program. That was my life. Like the food, the meal, the this, the that, like how much am I eating? How much do I weigh? What size clothes am I wearing? Like that was my program for a while. The problem really came clearer to me when I got to a goal weight that I had always wanted to be. Mind you, I was too thin. I was not well, but I got to a goal weight and looked the part and looked like I was well and I could talk a good game, because we addicts have the gift of gab. And I have a background in theater, so I can tap dance for you and make it sound like, I have my life together, et cetera, et cetera. But I was so rageful and uncomfortable in my own skin, and I couldn't figure out why. That's when I started to realize that there was something deeper going on than just food. Because when I was fat, I could just say, oh, okay, it's because I need to lose weight. And once I lose weight, then everything will be fine. It was a total mind bend when I got to 125 pounds and I wasn't getting my period and, all those things. And I was still completely struck with social anxiety and rageful and uncomfortable and impulsive and like all those things I thought I was doing because I was fat. Now I realized, oh, this is actually has nothing to do with the food. And it's actually worse now because I don't even have food to take the edge off. So once I started to get that, then it was the next level of, okay, first I have this food problem and I'm willing to be abstinent the way that it's recommended to me. Now that I'm thin and I see that I have a real spiritual malady, now I'm, instead of fighting it and trying to make myself better, because I did all the self-help books. I remember reading The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz and being like, okay, I'm gonna be a really good person today. And then I'd walk out of my bedroom and interact with another human person and be like, damn it. Like, no, I hate everyone. Forget it. And I realized that there was no power within myself and no power outside of me, because I had done the therapy and I'd read the books and I'd done all the things to try to make me feel better. So then I had to accept, oh, there's something fundamentally going on in here that I cannot fix myself to be willing to work the 12 steps, which is really the program of OA. Um, a food plan and all of those things are tools. The program of OA is the 12 steps. And the original text of the 12 steps is in the big book, which I thump with no remorse everywhere I go. So just heads up about that. Anyway, the point was, you know, so he says, I, of all people, strange as it may seem, even though I didn't give my permission, really, really am an alcoholic of sorts. And that really was how it was for me. I remember I sent my mom, before I went to an OA meeting, I sent my mom to one to like spy for me and see what was going on. And she called me afterward and she was like, I think you should go to one of those meetings. And I was so offended. Like, it's like she might as well have called me like a pedophile. I was like, what? Me? Mind you, I'm sitting there with like, like a pile of food and like a joint. And I'm like, I'm fine. What are you even talking about? I don't need some weird group for fat people to talk about food. Weird. But yeah, no, I 100% did. And once I understood that that was what the problem was, then it says, when I stopped living in the problem and began living in the answer, the problem went away. And I've talked about this on my workshops before, this question of living in the what versus the why. Because I can come into OA and I can go to meetings and then I can spend the next 20 years working out why I'm a compulsive overeater, right? Like I'm a Jewish woman in 2025 who has, epigenetic generational trauma from being kicked out of all these different countries. And now I'm here. And, my grandmother lived in the Great Depression and she was a hoarder. And then my uncle became a pillhead. And then, and my mom was a compulsive overeater. And I had all these bad things happen to me. And I could sit here all day long. And, now I live in Israel and, people shoot rockets at me and I take it really personally. Like there are a lot of really good reasons for me to say that I'm a compulsive overeater. But you know what? Even if I knew the exact reason, even if you told me, even if an article came out today and science was like, listen, if you have gene number SQRPL1 or whatever, I just totally made that up. That means that you're a compulsive eater. Okay, now I know why. It changes zero things about my life, except that now I know why. But you know what? In the end, why is an irrelevant question. The question is what? Are you or not? And if you are, what are you going to do about it? It's actually as simple as that. And I know a lot of people who come in here and write their inventories on like, their family histories. It's like, that's cute, but that actually has nothing to do with OA. The bottom line is, are you a compulsive overeater or not? Or an anorexic or bulimic or whatever it is that you do with food. And if you are, what are you going to do? That takes maybe 30 seconds of discussion versus 20 years of contemplation. Okay. So what he's saying is when I stopped living in the problem and began living in the answer, the problem went away. What am I going to do about it? We have to focus on the solution, not the problem, right? So number one, I have to accept that I have this problem because if I don't, I'm not going to do anything. And then once I do, I have to focus on the fact that there is something I can do about it and not, oh, woe is me. Why do I have it? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the next paragraph, which both inspires and pisses me off simultaneously. Okay, and acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. Every single one. Not like some of them, like all of them. Okay, when I am disturbed, and they talk about this in the book, our main problem is when we're disturbed. Getting disturbed, restless, irritable, discontent. That is the problem. The problem is not that I have a problem with food. My problem is that I allow myself to get disturbed because I'm spiritually sick. Because when I am disturbed, when I am restless, irritable, and discontent, I have an unease inside that I feel I can only fix with food. And because food causes so many problems for me, and it's like a toddler in the room that's screaming. Like you take care of the toddler, but guess what? That's not the actual problem. You're still in the middle of a party with a million people screaming. Okay. So my problem is I need to make sure that I remain undisturbed. Not that I'm not eating compulsively. Okay. Those are two big distinctions. My problem is not the food. I used food as a solution. Once I take the food away, I now have to deal with the actual problem, which is my spiritual sickness. So that means working the 12 steps and then maintaining a spiritual experience so that I do not get disturbed. Okay, so, but when I am disturbed, and guess what? Even after you work the 12 steps, disturbance comes. We're humans. That's how it goes. When I am disturbed, it is because I find some person, place, thing, or situation, some fact of my life unacceptable to me. That's actually both simple and profound, right? There is a situation, I can think of like 5 situations off the top of my head right now where I'm just like, nope, it should not be like that. Mm-mm. Says who? Says who? The only person I think that I have authority on the way my life should go. It's actually quite funny. Um, I'll give you an example. I have a son who is 15. He has ADHD, and he's basically me as a teenage boy. Okay. So he just does not want to do the things that he doesn't want to do. He has an attitude. He's just bouncing all over the place. And he doesn't want he has anxiety, but he won't admit he has anxiety. And he won't go to school and he won't. I don't want to, I don't want to. And there's a part of me, and by the way, all of my kids have some kind of specific need. And I'm just like, can you just do the things? Can you just get up in the morning and eat your breakfast and get on the bus and go do the things like other kids? Like, just do the things. I don't like to use the word normal because there's no such thing, but just like do the things that typical kids do. Like, just function. And there have been mornings where I have to call someone afterwards and be like, do you want a 15-year-old boy to come live at your house? Because I'm done with the one at mine. He's fired. But really, the problem is not that he's doing these things. The problem is that I don't accept that he's doing these things. He's being 15. He's actually way better of a teenager than I was at his age. If you call my father, he will tell you right now, like, forget it. There were times where my parents thought I was dead because well, I shouldn't say my parents, my dad. My mom knew where I was. But like, in fact, my father said to me, the only difference between him, my son, and me is that he has access to transportation that I did not at 15 years old. He can hop on a bus and just come home. If there was a train station next to my high school, you better believe I'd be in New York City every day. Like, that's just how it was. So the bottom line is, I think that my son is supposed to function in a way that is different from who he is. And then I end up with a resentment about it. So instead of saying, what is the situation here? I'm saying, why can't you do this? Why can't you be like this? And it drives me crazy. So my job is not to change him, but to change my attitude and say, okay, I see that this is who you are. So what are we going to do about it? So the only thing that I've been able to do at this point is to get out of the way and stop fighting with him, and allow him to fail, which means, of course, a kid should go to school. But I also have work and things to do. If you skip school and you fail out, that's your problem. However, we have found a VOTEC school that he's at right now, actually, trying to get in, that will give him something to do with his hands and maybe give him a skill instead of having to sit at a desk all day, which he is physically incapable of doing. So again, I'm not living in the why, I'm living in the what. Is that going to work out? I have no idea. He might totally sabotage it. It's fine. That's his problem. So my job is not to fix certain situations that are unfixable, but to accept them and then deal with the facts on the ground. Because I can create a whole reality in my head about how things are supposed to be and then react to that. And then when actual reality comes in, get mad that that's what I have to deal with. That's my problem, right? So and it says, and I can find no serenity, right? And serenity is the exact contrast to being disturbed, right? We get disturbed, but we're striving to come back to serenity. We need to live in serenity in order to keep that channel to God open. This is a huge challenge, guys. But as we work the 12 steps and we maintain that spiritual experience, it becomes a muscle that gets stronger. And so you better believe I go from disturbance to serenity and back 100 times a day. But that's what we're striving for. And it's important to understand that. We're not striving for abstinence. Abstinence is important and we need it as a prerequisite. But what we're really doing is getting food out of the way so we can learn how to move from disturbance to serenity. Okay? And I can find no serenity until I accept that person, place, thing, or situation as being exactly the way it is supposed to be at this moment. Do you know how fucking unfair that is? Like, I do not want half the situations going on in my life that if you ask me to write like a wish list for the way my life would look, I'd say 98% of the things in my life I would change. Um, but I can't. I can change myself. No, I shouldn't say that. I would change less. I have a really good life. That's not true. But like, I would, there are definitely circumstances or characteristics in the people that I love that I would change 100%. 100%. But again, there's actually nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong in my life. This is just the situation. It's objective fact. When I don't accept an objective fact because I have a story that it should be like this, I get disturbed. I live with, so my stepdaughters are out of the house. So I live with four guys. Okay. It's me, four guys, and my dog. So imagine being a woman who, you know, is fabulous and has her life together and works a hard 12-step program and is accountable and honest and just better in every way. And then you have four dudes who for the life of them cannot get their shit together. Like it's like watching a car accident every day. Like imagine what that's like. Imagine just wanting to run and they'll be like, everybody, whoa, everybody stop. Nope. I'm supposed to be in the center of a freaking circus every single day for whatever reason. I don't know. Maybe to be an example to them, maybe to show them what, you know, an exemplary human looks like. Maybe I'm just supposed to learn myself how to accept people better because I'm not good at that. I'm very judgy and I demand perfection of myself and others. So maybe they're supposed to loosen me up. Maybe it's both. Who knows? My point is, I'm not supposed to sit there in the middle of the circus and be like, oh, why? I'm supposed to like be showing the lions where to go and sending the horses over there and the trapeze people over there and like, okay, let's go, let's do this. I'm equipped to do that, I guess, for some reason. But when I decide that I'm not supposed to be doing that is when I get disturbed. There's this great, I mention him all the time, Sandy Beach. He's an AA speaker who I'm obsessed with. And he talks about the idea, he uses this example in regards to the third step, which is actually deeply corresponds to this, which we'll talk about in a minute. But he talks about this, imagine there's a play, right? And there's a guy who's cast as the janitor in the play. And his job only is to sweep the stage. That's his job. Like the whole play, he's just in the background sweeping the stage, okay? And the play opens and it's doing great. And he's in the background sweeping the stage. Fine. So the play's great. The problem comes the day where the janitor in the back starts seeing the leading man and the ingenue and the comic relief getting the standing ovations at the end and the loud applause. And he starts going, well, why are they getting that? Like, I mean, do they not see how I'm sweeping the stage? This is not a comedy. This is actually a tragedy about a janitor who has been completely overlooked his entire life. And suddenly he gets into this woe is me. He starts hating the play, hating the stage, not wanting to be there, maybe even storms off one night, not realizing that not having a janitor in the back ruins the whole play. So the point is, if I have to look at my role in the play and ask myself if I'm playing it well, not should I be playing a different role or should they be doing a different thing? That's not my job. And that's directly corresponding to the way that the big book describes how we are actors trying to play directors in step 3. That I look around and say, well, this play is not how I think it should be. And I need to fix this, and this about it. And then I go and I put all of my effort and energy into changing external circumstances so that I feel better, when really I'm just wasting my time. And it also says in the big book that let's say I manage to get all the details in line. And by some miracle, I'm able to manipulate everyone to do exactly what I want them to do. Still, the play does not suit him, it says. You know why? Because even if I get every single external circumstance in my life that I attribute my discomfort to be perfect, I haven't fixed the problem. There will always be something in me that feels a little off. Always, because that's the nature of the addict, unless I am working a spiritual program. So if I persist in the lie that I need to fix something out here in order to feel better in here, I'm going to be constantly displeased. I'm going to be constantly disturbed. So I have to accept that everything out here is exactly as it's supposed to be, respond in the what rather than the why, and then work on what's going on in here. Right. And for me, it's acceptance and trust. Accepting that life is happening the way it's supposed to happen means that I have to trust a higher power. I've had things happen to me that are deeply unjust, and I will never, probably in my lifetime, ever get justice for them. But no one ever promised a fair world. No one ever promised a fair life. I grew up on Disney movies, right? Like the bad guy gets it in the end, and the leading man gets his princess, and they live happily ever after. In no realistic world does that ever happen. If it does, I'd really like to know about it. I've never heard that. But that's the point. I have expectations of this world to run a certain way, and when it doesn't, I don't accept it. When actually I have to say, okay, God's the director here. Whatever he's doing is right. And considering the world that we live in today, that's a really hard thing to do. But if I can find no serenity until I accept that person, place, thing, or situation as being exactly the way it is supposed to be at this moment, nothing, absolutely nothing happens in God's world by mistake. Now, that's both a huge challenge and also a huge relief, because I look at the way some people are responding to world events. I look at the way people are behaving. I look at the way people are treating each other. I look at the way that I behave sometimes. And I'm just like, what the hell is going on here? Like, this world is insane. It should not be like this. We need peace. We need people to basically, we just need everyone to join a 12-step program. That's what needs to happen. Okay. And then once that happens, everybody's going to be just fine. But no one's getting it. No one's doing it. And I'll tell you something, somebody in my community, who I didn't know well. In fact, I knew only as an acquaintance. I had been in touch with him and his wife because I started a big book meeting in my studio next to my house. And he and the wife, I don't remember exactly how it went, but they had made a request that I have the meeting at night because they couldn't come during the day. And so I moved the meeting to night, and I hate having meetings at night. But I moved it at night because I wanted this person to have a chance to come. And he never came. His wife came once, and this week he died of an overdose. And I went to the funeral, and I went to the Shiva, and I was so brokenhearted. He left 6 kids behind, youngest is 13. I was so brokenhearted, not just because of the tragedy of it, but because the solution was right there. There was a meeting half a mile from his house. There are so many people dying from this disease, and the solution is right there. They could have it. They could. Like an infinitesimal number of people who actually have the privilege of using and living this program compared to the people who actually need it. I don't think you can even measure that. The fact is that there are people dying of this disease every single day in hospitals where there are meetings 2 floors down. I spent a month in America's, I don't know if it still is, but at the time it was the leading diet and fitness center in the United States. And as I'm sitting there trying to figure out what the hell is going on with me, there was an OA meeting in one of the boardrooms. I had no idea at the time. No clue. It's not fair. The world should be better. People deserve this, and not only do they deserve it, I mean, who deserves what? But people should be able to use this, and they should get out of their own way and freaking do it, because then they'd save their lives. And it's horrible. But the fact is that nothing happens in God's world by mistake. I have no idea why this person was supposed to die. I have a friend who's in recovery from drug addiction, and she her husband went to the Shiva, and he came home, and he was just like, thank God you're alive. Maybe this reinforces somebody else's sobriety, or maybe this helps one of his children. I have no idea what's happening here, but there are just moments where I look around and I go, and excuse my language, this world is fucked. But apparently it's not, apparently God knows exactly what God is doing. And part of my job in order to remain undisturbed is to trust that. even when it's heartbreaking. So yesterday when I went to synagogue, all I could do after seeing, the aftermath of this family was just talk to God and cry. Because that's all I got. No human power is going to be able to relieve that. So all I can do is talk to God about it because God's the only one who knows what's going on, right? So again, I could sit here and rage at the injustice of it and how unfair it is and these poor kids but why? What's going to come of that? I'm just going to get disturbed by it and I don't have that luxury. So I have to acknowledge that even this guy's tragic death of an overdose was not a mistake. That even in God's world, that was what was supposed to happen. That's literally what they're saying here. And I trust this book because these are people and listen, I don't know, theologically, I can get into a theological argument if I wanted to, but quite frankly, it's a waste of my time. This book exists for me to use, and I need to follow these people's example because they did what I did. They had what I wanted. These are people who were not okay, and then they did the 12 steps and they stayed sober for, God willing, most of them the rest of their lives. So I don't need to question or argue with these people. If this is what you say, I will believe you. I will, if that's what you think I need to do, then I'll do it. There are people who have the luxury of being like, well, maybe it isn't an accident and who knows? Go for it. Go argue and get disturbed and see how that works for you. Fine, enjoy. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to say nothing happens in God's world by mistake. And it may be simple and it may piss somebody off. But for me, it's what I need to do to remain undisturbed. That's all. And just like in We Agnostics, and I've said this before, this book does not exist to tell us what God is or to believe in God. It's just tell us what God is. It's telling us about our need for God. Because at the end of the day, none of us can really prove that God exists. Some of us have had experiences and we can share them, but ultimately, nobody can really say A plus B equals C, that's God. Nobody can say that. But there are people who say because we believed in God and we developed a relationship with that God, we were able to live happy, joyous, and free after a life of killing ourselves through addiction. That's enough proof for me. So I'm just going to do what they say. And this guy who, if you read his story, acceptance was the answer. He was killing himself with drugs, with alcohol and drugs, and now he wasn't. I'm going to listen to him. And he's saying nothing happens in God's world by mistake. That's a hard pill to swallow, no pun intended. But that's just the fact here. Okay. Unless I could accept my alcoholism, I could not stay sober, which we said. If I do not deep down acknowledge that I'm a compulsive eater, I'm not going to do this. And even if I do it, I'm not going to mean it and it's not going to stick because there's going to be this little voice in my head that says, okay, I'll just do this until I lose 40 pounds and I'm back in my pre-pregnancy jeans. And then I can just eat whatever I want and it's fine. But more important, unless I accept life completely on life's terms, I cannot be happy. Oh, that is so the opposite of the story I was told from the time I was a kid. If I go to a good college, get good grades, get a good job, make a lot of money, marry a rich husband, have a country house, go on vacations every year, have kids who go to and become doctors, like that's the only way you're going to be happy. Unless I live like the people I see in the magazines, happiness is not possible. Or if I wear a certain size pants, or if my face looks a certain way, or if I live in a certain place, I'm going to be happy. This is actually the opposite. It's saying you're not supposed to do or get anything. You're just supposed to look at your life and accept it the way it is. That's like, it's like trying to learn a new language. I spent my whole life chasing happiness, thinking maybe if I go there, I'm friends with these, and this one falls in love with me, or if no, happiness has nothing to do with anything except me saying this is exactly as it should be. There's a saying in the Ethics of the Fathers, who is happy? He who is content with his lot. Right? It has nothing to do with having enough. You could be the poorest person in the world, but if you accept your life completely, you can be happy. I actually watched this documentary once on the happiest people in the world. And there was a guy, I think he lived in India. I can't remember exactly where he lived. And he lived in this house. It wasn't even a house. It was like tarp on sticks. And he had like 4 kids sleeping on a sleeping bag together. And his wife cooks his food on like a can. And they were the happiest people in the whole world. And they're like, look what we have. We have a house and we have a family and we have food. Like, it has nothing to do with what I have or what I've achieved. I'm doing a lot of work on Instagram right now. Do not get me started, puke. But I'm doing it for my business. And it's unbelievable how how much of a draw, how quickly it can suck you in, how many followers you have, right? Like so many people like me and so many people follow me and so many, like that's gonna make me happy. Once I hit this many followers and this many, dear God, like it has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with any of these things. Once I look at my life and I say, wow, this is precisely what is needed and built exactly to fit me, that's when I'm going to be happy. I have to do zero things. In fact, I have to take things away in order to be happy. And that's something I've heard also, that wisdom is not about acquiring, it's about releasing, letting go. Um, I need to concentrate not so much on what needs to be changed in the world as what needs to be changed in me and in my attitudes. Oh my God. I hate that so much. I see so much on the internet and I'm just like, I want to slap half of humanity behind the head and just be like, what's wrong with you? Like, what? Like, please use your brain or find it first and then use it. Like, I can't with people. And I feel that way also, even with my own children sometimes, where I'm just like, my husband sometimes will say to me, I don't know what I would do without you. And I'm like, I know, I'm genuinely concerned. Like, I cannot die first because I don't know what you're going to do. Like, it worries me. Like, I have to deal with this constantly. But again, it has nothing to do with what's going on out there. I have to change my attitude about what's going on in here. It's such harder work because I love sitting on my pedestal and looking down at everybody because, first of all, it makes me feel good about me. And second of all, it absolves me from any responsibility of changing myself. We have, like I said, we have this big book meeting in my studio next door. And there's somebody who comes who's like a chronic, I don't know, chronic, but like has relapsed. And they come in and they spout like this fountain of bullshit throughout the meeting. And they just aren't saying anything. They're just, sharing their thoughts, which, is adorable. And I have no patience for this person, like zero. I really have a hard time. And there's somebody else in the meeting who's like, yeah, this is another a fellow addict, and like, yeah, for sure he's full of crap or she's full of crap or whoever. But we just need to, be patient and help them. And I'm just like, ugh, I don't want to help them. They're so full of crap, like because it makes me feel so much more recovered, like, ugh, at least I don't think like that anymore. And it's like, okay, well, you're not supposed to be judging this person. You're supposed to be helping them. You think I would figure that out after 20 something years in recovery? Like, no, you help them. Like, don't judge them. Help them out. Help a guy out. But again, I don't want people coming into my meeting and saying things that have nothing to do with recovery because it's affecting me. Like that's how my brain works, as opposed to, oh, look, God sent a live one. Go help them. This is still how I operate, and I need to like learn new ways of acting and being. Um, so just to scroll down. I love that. Welcome to 2025. I was able to see the flaw in every person, every situation, and I was always glad to point it out because I knew you wanted perfection just as I did. Do you guys have a problem with criticism? It's like a thing. I can dish it out constantly, but God forbid somebody criticize me. Forget it. Forget it. I will take their head off. And I think my husband gets it the worst. Because he has like what his real problem is? His problem is that he has opinions and he wants to share them with me. He shouldn't do that. Like I can tell him what I think about things, and he's just supposed to be like, no, I agree. You're right. You're right about everything always. Like I don't. That was our agreement, I thought, when we got married. I guess he didn't get that part, and he's just like, no, I think, and I'm like, nope, no, 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 I don't want to hear it. Done. Um, I don't get it. Like he should do the things that I say he should do and not have argue with me because I know the things. He doesn't get that. But the bottom line is that I have to accept that people are people. And I can't look at people in a harsh and critical way and expect them to look back at me with compassion. It doesn't work like that. Whatever I put out, I'm going to get back. So it says here, there's a bit of good in the worst of us and a bit of bad in the best of us. That means that, like go back to those Disney movies again. Like there's nobody who's fully evil and no one who's fully good. I can think of a few exceptions of people who are fully evil. We don't need to talk about them here. They get plenty of talk in the press, but even those people believed that they were doing good, even though they were doing evil. Like they thought they were helping the world by doing what they were doing. So were they right? Hell no. But their intentions were good. So even then, I have to say there's still a bit of good in them. There's nobody who's 100% evil. There are people who have wiped out chunks of humanity, but did so thinking that they were saving the world. So could I hold it against them? For sure, because why? But they weren't doing it to just be bad. So I gotta own that, because when people do stuff to me that's way less serious, I have to work on the assumption that they were doing their best. I have to. Or else I'm just gonna be in resentment all the time. And I can't. It says that we are all children of God and we each have a right to be here. I hate that too. There are some people who I do not think have a right to be here. Or if they do, they should be in like some country far away where I never see them. But apparently they live across the street from me. So, there's that. When I complain about me or you, I am complaining about God's handiwork. I am saying that I know better than God. I had a situation last week where I'm hanging out with my sister-in-law, and God bless her. I love her. We're very close. But her in-laws are very, very wealthy. And so they're flying, or they left already. They flew to Mexico for Passover. And they're staying at a hotel, all expenses paid, done, like they are living the life, okay? And she started complaining about how much she had to pack and organize for the kids. And I was like, please excuse me while I vomit into the garbage can. Okay. Like, oh, I'm so sorry. You have to pack so many clothes for your kids to go on freaking resort vacation. I'm so sorry. And like literally that phrase is what I thought of when she was doing that. No, God bless her. She was like, I know it sounds so bad that I'm complaining about that. But like it's true. I'm sitting here right now in a beautiful house in Israel, like a big beautiful house, which is hard to find in Israel, with a pool and a studio. And I'm complaining about, oh, don't worry, I'll find something to complain about. Okay. Like there's always something I can complain about. I complain about how I don't have clients right now and I'm working so hard and it's Passover and I have to clean and my kids are so ungrateful and they just make messes and, blah, 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 blah. Or I can just say, this is the lot that God gave me. And for whatever reason, he thinks I'm supposed to have that, or she, or it. And I'll just give you an example of that. About 6, 7 years ago, my husband and I decided to try for another baby because apparently 5 children wasn't enough and we needed more. While we were trying, I kept praying, like, please send me a healthy girl. Please send me a healthy girl. I got pregnant, kept praying, please send me a healthy girl. And then at 7 weeks, I lost the baby. And I was really, really devastated. And, I was just like, God, I wanted this baby. Like, I'd take good care of it. I'm a pretty good mom. Like, what's the story? And then a week later, it felt like the end of the world when it happened. It really did. I was devastated. And then a week later, my stepdaughter, who was 15 at the time, said to me, I want to come live with you. And I said, of course. But, you have to have some tough conversations. And so she went and she had those conversations with her mom and she moved in. And I realized that God had answered my prayer. He sent me a healthy girl. He just didn't send me a baby. So, I could complain about God's handiwork and say, why didn't you give me this baby? Or I could say, oh, okay, I see what you're doing here. And when I didn't know what was going on at the time, I could still say, I know you're up to something. Because again, the goal here is not about being this high, lofty spiritual person. It's about remaining undisturbed. And the way I remain undisturbed is by aligning my vision with God's vision of this world to the best of my ability. Obviously, I'm not going to understand everything that's happening, but I can at least say, if I don't get this, I have to trust that God is doing something bigger than I can see right now, so that I can maintain my serenity. And in general, it says, I don't know what's good for me. And if I don't know what's good for me, I don't know what's good for or bad for you. So I'm better off if I don't give advice, don't figure if I know what's best, and just accept life on life's terms as it is today, especially my own life, as it actually is. So in other words, Ria needs to keep her mouth shut, focus on what's in front of her, and know that it's precisely what I need today. And I'm going to leave it there because I am out of time. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Ria.